Well, we're going to do things a little different this time. I'm glad you're here. Uh, I have been telling a little story every week or so. This time I'm going to deviate from that particular way of doing things, and I'm going to present maybe something that might be a little interesting to you. We'll see. You know, a little history first. About 50 years ago, my wife Perry and I and our two small kids moved out here to a little community of Chaco, built a house. Nobody around. You couldn't see from our house when it got dark, you couldn't see another light. There was no telephone service. We finally got an 8-party line put in for a while. But it was wonderful. Perry had her horse. I had my horse. The kids had their ponies. We had bird dogs, and I could turn them loose, and maybe there was a covey of quail within 10 minutes from the house. Deer everywhere. 2 miles down to the river, full of ducks and fish. It was super. Then people started sort of discovering this place, and people started moving in. You could actually see a light once in a while when it got dark. And I have to admit, being a little hesitant about folks moving in like that and feeling sort of hemmed in, until I realized finally that without exception, every one of them was, they were wonderful, super people, good neighbors now, all around us. We love them. They help us, we help them, and they're just nice to have around. And I thought I'd introduce you to one of them this time. Now, we've got doctors out here and lawyers, veterinarians, realtors, engineers, business owners, all different types of folks. And they're all good people. But this one I'm going to introduce to you today maybe has a talent that you haven't seen much of. He is arguably one of the top 5 metallurgists in the United States of America. He lives right down the road here at Chaco, Mississippi, which is sort of in the central part of the state. And I called him not a couple of days ago and asked him if he would share some of his thoughts and experiences with us, and he agreed to do that. So in a few minutes, I'm going to be at his house. We're going to show you some things I think that you'll be pleased to see. So I'm going to shut this down right now, and the next time you see me, I will be at the residence of Mr. Ernie Doyle. And I think you'll be pleased with what you see. So I'll see you in just a few minutes, as soon as I can run down there to his place and get set up. All right, everybody. We are in the shop of one Ernie Doyle. And I'm going to try as best I can to give you some kind of indication of the type tools that he has, what he uses, and then we're going to talk to him specifically. There's no way I can get all of these things in here, and if I'm shaky on this, just overlook it, because you see all of these, and we're going to talk about these too in a few minutes. Let me take a quick shot of his home. This is the kind of place we have out in Chaco. Everybody's kind of out in the woods, and everybody loves it. So this will give you some kind of indication of the type shop he has, which is a wonderful place. And stand still, Ernie. I got to get a shot of you, man. Yeah, that's Ernie Doyle, folks, and he's a good man. I don't care what they say about him.
Get the end.
Yep. And there's one of the top things he does use. So what do you call this art that you're involved in?
Well, for the really technical people, you'd probably say that I am a manual mechanical manipulator of ferrous material. In other words, I'm a metalsmith or a blacksmith.
Did y'all write that down? Okay. Well, first of all, what was your real job before you got into this?
Well, I was an architect. I graduated from Mississippi State University in architecture, and went to work with an architecture engineering firm in Jackson after I graduated for about 4 years. And then the federal government called me and they said, we would like to have one of you. And so I went in for an interview, got the job, and worked for the federal government for 33 years. Traveled all over the country.
Well, so when did you start this metalworking?
In 1994.
Wow, and you weren't any kid when you started.
No, I wasn't. I was 50 years old.
Why did you get into this at that age?
Well, I did a lot of, I was doing a lot of work on a shaving horse with draw knives and doing a lot of unusual old type of woodworking. And a friend of mine saw me doing that and he said, you might be interested in blacksmithing. And I said, I don't know a thing about it. They said, well, come by the house on a Saturday and I'll introduce you to it. Well, I went by his house a couple of weeks later on a Saturday. He built a fire in a forge and said, here's this piece of metal, draw a point on it. I said, what? I don't even know what that is. So he kind of showed me. And with metal being at 1800 degrees with a hammer, it's very pliable. It's just like modeling clay. And he showed me how to make a fire poker. And I absolutely went nuts. I fell in love with it. It was something that was unusual. It was different. I had never seen anybody do any work like that. And so I said, I'm gonna try this. And so I did, and I got a forge and got an anvil and started doing some work. And it was kind of crude, but everybody starts out with crude stuff. And then gradually I moved into, rather than the American way of doing metalwork, I moved into an area that I've always loved, and that was the Gothic and Renaissance period. And it basically started with Notre Dame in the 11th and 12th century. And I fell in love with that kind of work, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Well, we're going to get a chance to look at some of that too in a few minutes in the house. But I just wanted everybody to get a look at this shop. By the way, these tools that you see here, you cannot buy at the local hardware store, right?
No.
Now, so how do you get them?
You have to make most of these tools on your own.
So you made most of these tools yourself?
Yes, absolutely. They can't be bought. For example, let me show you this in this box. These are all straight chisels, curved chisels, butchers, flatters, round face tools, fullers, a lot of different types of tools, and you can't buy these.
Pick one of them up, sure.
Okay. For example, this is a butcher.
Why is it called a butcher?
Well, it's, I think it's kind of like what you would do with meat sometimes. Butcher blocks with meat. And that's, to my understanding, that's why it's called a butcher.
Okay.
And then you got all other types of tools like tiny straight chisels.
And you made all of these?
I made every one of them. They're made out of S7. It's a air hardening or water hardening tool steel. Same thing jackhammer bits are made out of.
Okay, so you started back then, and you literally have taught classes all over the country.
I have.
haven't you?
Yes.
So how many students do you think you've taught how to do this
Oh,
stuff?
it's probably approaching 1,000. I've taught in North Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Colorado, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and a bunch of other states.
Just your typical Chaco resident.
Yeah, just typical, just old country guy.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do, since we've got an idea of, what you do. And of course, we don't have the forge fired up, but there it is. And I can assure you folks, I have been here while he was working, and it gets hot. I'm talking serious hot.
This is all bituminous coal. It's not anthracite. Anthracite is a hard coal, but this is very crumbly. And all you use is you light it with paper, and then you have an air blast, and that's it.
Well, okay.
I do use this tool right here. It's called a Treadle Hammer, and you operate it with your foot. And it took the place of a blacksmith's helper. They had people who were 8 and 10 years old, and they started it. The blacksmith would hold a piece of metal on the anvil, and then he would hold the tool in this hand, a piece of metal in this hand. He'd put it down, he'd draw a pattern on the metal, and when he would have this helper, this little young kid, tap this, like when I nod my head, hit it, and so that little guy would tap this, and the smith would move that tool around to get the indentation of that pattern. But when those little guys got too expensive to use, like a nickel an hour, the blacksmith said, we can't handle this. We've got to come up with something else. So they invented a tool like this called a treadle hammer, where you didn't have to have a little guy. You can still hold the metal and hold the tool, but you can use that to follow a pattern. And that's the technique that's used today.
Okay. Well, let's, in order to see some of the finished stuff that he's got, I'm going to cut away now, and we're going to go over to the house and show you some of the things that he's done. You won't believe what you're looking at. And then I got a couple of serious questions to ask him that you might be interested in. Okay, we're gonna stop now. So we'll go to the house and take a look at these things.
Okay.
Okay, we are in Ernie Doyle's house, and I just wanted to show you some of the incredible things that he has made. You'll notice, Ernie, I'm looking at this stuff on the table, and you might want to give a quick.
Well, this is all Gothic period work, from padlocks, door locks, some other padlocks. Then you got chest that.
And you made that total.
Yes, absolutely. Out of raw material.
Wow. Oh, and one interesting thing about the lock, you told me, you begin with the key and build the lock around the key.
Yes, you make the key first, and then you build the lock around the key. And you've got a little door on these. The key slides in. It's a pipe key because you can see the end. It's hollow. And it slides over a cylinder, and you turn the key clockwise, and the lock opens. To close the lock, here's the key to making a good lock, is the sound. And so that's the way all these locks work. And I've really enjoyed doing this. It's fascinating for me to do this.
Folks, you will not find this stuff in your local hardware store, I can assure you.
Absolutely.
Look at the intricacies. All of this is done in that shop you just came out of.
Yes.
And here's some other stuff that he just finished. You might want to mention. Oh, here, yeah. Let's look at this. That also.
This is all handwork, and everything is it's cooked in a fire first to get a marbled finish on the metal, just like this. That Gothic period made a lot of use of the fleur-de-lis. Down here, the fleur-de-lis was either the lily of the valley, the stylized lily, or it symbolized the Trinity. And there's a lot of symbolism in all of this work. You can't buy these parts anywhere. Everything has to be handmade.
Yeah. Speaking of, where can the folks buy this stuff?
It's very difficult to find it to buy. In fact, I don't sell anything. I do it as a challenge to myself. But even if you wanted to see it, then you're just about going to have to go to Europe. Then it will be in a museum behind glass.
So folks, your chances of purchasing one of these is nil. These are door knockers.
Yeah, these are all door knockers here. Now, this one right here, I did this before the movie Avatar ever came out. It's the face of a cat. The cat's got horns, and in between the horns, the cat has feathers. And then here's the knocker. And this is all of that Gothic period. Door knocker. This has got a Nordic influence to it. This is a little green man. And then, you got this right here. I wonder if anybody could guess what kind of birds those are. Well, to get an idea what birds they are, you've got to look at the flower. A hummingbird. Everything is put together with collars and rivets. There's no welding. There's another collar. There's no welding on any piece that I do. I want it to be period specific with what I did. And so everything is attached with collars and rivets.
How do you decide what you're going to do next?
Well, I look for a mental challenge. It's to use the same tools, techniques, and processes that were used in the 12th century without any modern techniques, no modern welding or any of that. And it is a mental challenge for me. You've got to think back ways, sideways, up ways, down ways, and forward. And so you've got to understand what the process is and the steps to get to this finished piece. And that's mentally, that's something that's challenging. Also, it keeps me physically active. Now, doing what I do, you don't have to get up there and hit the fire out or something. You're just taking your time and being methodical with the process, and that's why it takes so long.
And very patient.
And very patient, extreme patience.
What is your favorite piece that you've done?
Well, I'll hate to tell you this, but it's the next one.
I knew that because you told me that before.
Yeah.
That's great.
See, I would rather not look backwards. I want to look forward. And probably the next piece I'll do will be a goucher. It was remember the Wizard of Oz, and they walked up to the door and they knocked on it? Had a little guy opened a little bitty window, and he said, "Who's there?" Well, a goucher covered that window, and that was to keep somebody from throwing a spear into your head. And it was a metal covering, but it was in the shape of a Gothic cathedral. three-dimensional. And that's what I will be doing as a goose shape. It'll probably be the most time-consuming piece I've ever done.
Well, when you get through with it, we will come back and take a look again. Ernie, it's incredible.
You did ask a question. You said, well, what kind of people take your classes?
Yeah.
And so I wrote down a note, and I said, well, I've had neurosurgeons, I've had cardiac surgeons, I've had communication engineers from MIT that design communication satellites. I've had some robotic engineers and scientists that work with NASA. I've had one from not NASA, but the Huntsville Arsenal in Alabama, who was a rocket scientist. And I've had a lot of other engineers or CEOs. I had one from Alcoa Aluminum that was CEO of Alcoa, and had lawyers, and had a whole lot of just average people who love metalwork. And they get excited, I get excited, and it's a lot of fun to teach. The teaching process is fairly grueling. We start at 6 in the morning and end up around 11 at night, and go for about 4 days, and that's all anybody can take.
You're ready to go to bed when you get through
I'm ready.
it. Right.
It wears me out.
Well, we're going to get away from it this particular time. I really appreciate your taking the time to show us what.
Try that lantern.
Oh, one more thing here, folks. That also is one of the things that he did. Isn't that incredible? Just like I said, just your typical Chaco resident. That's beautiful. Thank you, Ernie. We appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
You're a good man.
I thoroughly enjoyed your visit, and I would love for you to come back anytime.
Well, other folks are going to be asking about that, I'm sure. So I won't give them your phone number, but I might give them your email address, right?
They can get in touch with you, and I'll take them on a tour.
How about that, folks? All right. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, this little video took longer than the ones I usually do, but there was no way we could do it for less time and give any semblance of justice to what Ernie's capable of doing. So, in addition to having him as an incredible artist, a good neighbor, Ernie and Mary, his wife, who is a talented lady in her own right, are valued friends of ours. And we continue to be blessed by having them live close to us. I say next, they're pretty close to next. They're only maybe a mile and a half away, which makes it just about right. I'm Jim Ritchie. I'll see you again next time.